Hello lovely people, welcome back to my channel. I hope you are all well. Today we are doing a bit of what I like to call filler content. The things I like doing on this channel are the nervous guides and the reviews, and there is a few of those coming up. I'm actually, at the time of filming, heading to London this weekend to see some shows. I'm very excited, especially as it's payday, so I can actually do things with my money for the brief amount of time that I actually have it. But occasionally we have to have these chats about different things. Last time I did a chatty-esque video was about Valentine's Day and shows that I love and the cast recordings that are on repeat. And today we're going to talk when the drama stops, if you will. We're talking show stops today. I saw a TikTok the other day and it was like, these are the stories behind why show stopped. And I actually find show stops kind of interesting. So I racked my little brain and I was like, okay, how many show stops have I been through? Luckily, not a great deal. But 4 instances came to my mind. So as it's said in Shrek, settle in girls, it's story time. Let's get into it and let's talk through a few show stops. So I feel I've been quite lucky in my life that there hasn't been a great amount of show stops that I've had to deal with. And by had to deal with, I've sat in my seat whilst whatever the problem has happened is being sorted out. So when it came to having a think and telling these stories, if you will, a few popped into my head. One of them, the first one we're going to talk about, being the first show stop I ever remember happening, which happened a very long time ago. So long ago, in fact, I don't actually remember the year. So the year is, I don't know. And I am sat in the Grand Theatre. I can even tell you I was sat in the Grand Circle of the Grand Theatre with my mum in my child years / early teens. I can't tell you when. The show that was on was Cats the Musical, and I didn't know anything going in. As a youth in theatre, I very much went to go and watch things that my mum thought I would enjoy, Cats being one of them. The next thing I went to see was Grease, which is a completely different experience, but that's a story for another day. So this show started, we had the introduction, if you will, the music that kind of builds up. And I was gonna say if you've ever seen the show, but I don't know if it's still a thing that happens, but the tour that I saw a long time ago, some cats came out of the audience. Now, me and my little head thought I was going to be safe because I was in the Grand Circle. No, they came up to our level 2, and if you were on the edge of a row, they kind of crawled down the stairs towards the front of the area you were in, so stalls, dress circle, Grand Circle, and hissed, basically, rubbed up. This started to sound like a fever dream, but I'm pretty sure it happened. Anyway, they kind of went through the audience and then all ran from wherever they were onto the stage to start the proper show, if you will. So that starts, I think we got into the end of Jellicle Cats and everything stopped and everyone ran off the stage. People, actors who were the cats, literally ran off as fast as they could like cats. Again, this is all sounding like a fever dream, but I'm like 95% sure it happened. And what had turned out was that we had been in a power cut and it was only the generators that were working, and they couldn't run the rest of the show on the generators. So that wasn't just a show stop, that was a show end, to the point that the entire audience were then allowed to work out when they could go and watch the show. And I saw it a second time, or a full first time, if you will. Ironically, I haven't been back to Cats since, but I know Cats is back this year, so maybe I should try my luck and see if it's just a Cats thing, if I'm like destined never to see it in its entirety straight away. So that was number one. The second one I hopefully should get through quicker. The second show stop I remember happening was in one of my first shows that I went to watch in London by myself, which was Half a Sixpence. A great time for me, and one of my favourite shows that I ever saw in London, still to this day. The song in question that it happened during was Pick Out a Simple Tune, which I think started off Act 2. I don't actually remember in what part of the show that is. Wikipedia says it's second song in Act 2, so quite near the beginning of an act. So the production that was at the Noel Coward pretty much ended with most the entire cast joining in with this song, and towards the back of the stage there was a chandelier hanging from a rope which was from the ceiling, and one cast member, which being for that performance and for most of the production being Harry Morrison of now the Producer's fame, he is supposed to get onto said chandelier, there's like a hook at the bottom, and go upside down and kind of be in the splits, kind of, but like swinging from the chandelier, etc. That happened to my knowledge, and then everything stopped at the end of that song. The safety curtain came down, and after a while it was announced that a different person was taking on the role that Harry was doing in that show. So basically I assume during being upside down or being in that vicinity, Harry had injured himself, which was a shame. Yeah, I think that was one of the first times also I went to social media and I was like, oh my gosh, I hope you're okay, you were amazing, etc. But it still sticks in my head to this day that everything had to be paused just after that song, and Harry was taken off. The third one, I like how all of these are different. However, the third showstop to my memory happened quite recently, just before Christmas in fact, when I watched Fiddler on the Roof at the Hippodrome in Birmingham. No, it wasn't at the Hippodrome, it was at the Alex, my apologies. Where the showstop came out of a medical emergency, which I hadn't really experienced in a theatre before. It was in the audience. It was actually in fact in my level, it was in the dress circle, and basically just before a song started, the stage management came out from the wings, told everyone to come off the stage, the safety curtain came down, and it was all dealt with by the amazing people at the Alex. There was also an announcement, if you were able to, if there was a doctor in the house or if you knew first aid, could you please go and help. So that was a different experience. Like I said, it was done amazingly, dealt with amazingly by the Alex staff. And yeah, incredible. And I hope that person is now okay, because like I said, it did happen relatively recently in the theatre world. Finally, again, this last one happened this year. I was watching Marie and Rosetta at the Wolverhampton Grand. I love how I've started and finished this with a Grand reference. So like I said, the show was Marie and Rosetta, which is a 2-person show. I think it's currently on at Soho, at Soho Place. And if it's not there at the moment, it's going to be there soon. And during Act 2, or was it just a straight through play? I can't remember. But towards the end of the show, it was in its last like 10 minutes, this show stopped. Shock horror. This is what this whole video is about. However, we to this day do not know why. Again, like with Fiddler, one of the people behind stage or behind the scenes came onto the stage, told the actors to come off. The safety curtain, I think, came down. I'm not 100%, but we were also told not to get out of our seats unless it was a real emergency, and then you had to talk to front of house. And the pause went on for about 10 minutes, and then the show did its last little bit of the show. Like I said, to this day we do not know why this happened. A lot of people, as people of the UK like to stick their oar in and try and find out everything, went to the front house staff afterwards and were like, what happened? And they were very much like, we don't know, we were just told to keep you all safe in the theatre, not to leave if we could help it. We don't know what happens. And I think that question was fielded about like 10 million times by the people in the audience to front of house staff. But yeah, an intriguing show stop where nobody knows why it stopped. But like I said, for me, a lot of my shows, I feel like I'm jinxing myself here, and I am going to the theatre this weekend, so I'm just going to touch some wood. A lot of my shows go on with no problems. The only other case of something happening is not really a show stop, but I was supposed to go to watch something at again at Soho Place. Can't remember what I was meant to see. I think it was The Little Big Things, the first time that I tried to see it, and due to cast, they didn't have enough to let the show run. And I turned up at the theatre at about 2:30, I want to say, and it was a 3 o'clock start. We were all told, unfortunately, we can't put the show on today. Talk to the people that you got your tickets from. And I ended up legging it. Literally legging it whilst on Statix, and I got I think it's the time I did standing at the Choir of Man when it was at the Arts Theatre, because I knew that the show hadn't started, that it started a similar time to the show that I was supposed to start, and it was a Sunday, so I needed to make sure it wasn't a long show I was watching, because I needed to get my case and go to the train station and go home. So not necessarily a show stop, but it is one of those times you're suddenly like, okay, my plans have changed, what do I need to do? The show hopefully and normally does go on, But I do always find show stops a little bit interesting. And I know, like I said, when it comes to audiences, if you are not told why it has stopped, there is very much a lot of people just going to try and work out why. But yeah, it's an interesting thing to talk about. So there we go, a little story time for a few things that have happened to me whilst I sit in my seats in theatres and hopefully watch shows go on. But like I said, most of the time, touching wood again, the show goes off that hitch. Unless there's rain. I'm not talking about any theatre there, but Regent's Park Open Air Theatre. But again, that wasn't really a show stop, it was a show end. But there we go. If you have any show stop related stories, feel free to put them in the comments. I know this week as I film, the Legally Blonde tour had to have a show stop within the first song because of a sound desk problem. But like the people who have covered that at Southampton and been like, the show went on, it was dealt with brilliantly. Like I've hopefully said during this video, this people behind the stage and in front of it and everybody on it are amazing human beings. Front of house also in that, because without everyone there we wouldn't have our shows to see. What a fantastic world we are in. But there we go, I'm going to stop whittering on because I have a few jobs to do this evening and not a lot of time to do it in. So I'm going to bid you farewell, so thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you come back for more theatre based things soon. Like I said, I am in London this weekend, so hopefully we've got a few more nervous guides and reviews to go up soon. Very excited. But other than that, I'm going to end this video here, so thank you very much for watching. I love you all lots. I hope you come back next time. I'm going around in a circle, so the last thing we need to say is what we always say, which is so long, farewell, auf Wiedersehen and goodbye. Goodbye.